Hi, friends. So today I thought we'd talk a little bit about one of the secrets to a happy marriage. I say one because there there can be many secrets to a happy marriage that don't have to be secrets at all, right? But let's just deal with one of them. As usual, let's look to the scriptures for an answer for that. I was recently talking about Tobit, and so maybe we'll go back to that. Tobit chapter 6, 7, and 8. Go ahead and read that to yourself, but I'll give you a little bit of background. So, the book of Tobit, Tobit has a son, and his name is Tobiah. And he's sending Tobiah off to a city, Media, in order to get some money that he had on deposit there. Tobit was a fairly well-to-do Jew who was in exile in Assyria, and he had a very misfortunate thing happen to him. He had a cataract and almost went blind, but God sent an angel to him, an angel that we're familiar with, one of the archangels, Raphael, and Raphael healed his eyes. So Tobit asked his son Tobiah to go and to retrieve this money. Now, in those days, there weren't banks, and traveling with money was a very dangerous thing. So Tobiah had to get a strong man to accompany him. The Lord provided that strong man. He provided Raphael. And Raphael, you can just imagine this archangel, like one of the great angels that we know about from the scriptures. And Raphael is this warrior, right? Just a strong man. And Tobiah doesn't know he's an angel. He thinks he's a man. He thinks he's a strong man. He thinks he's going to accompany him and be a bodyguard. So off they go on this trail to go to Media. And along the way, Raphael, in a very real way, becomes more than just a protector. He is what we would call a guardian angel. The Jews believed in angels just like we as Christians, or let me say vice versa. The Jews believed in angels in the Old Testament, and we believe in angels, of course, in the New Testament, and also guardian angels. And that's, in a very real way, what Raphael was. So we get a little view of what a guardian angel is for us. We as Catholic Christians have always believed that God assigns an angel to us all of our lives who helps to guard us, inspire us, protect us, give messages from God, lead us in the ways of God, if we are open to the guardian angel guiding us, right? And that's the key, is that if we're living our lives attuned to God and the ways of God, then we're very much attuned to the angel that God has given to us. And therefore, what God wants to speak to our lives and lead us in life can be easily or more easily accomplished through the hand of a guardian angel. That's Raphael for Tobiah. So Raphael makes a suggestion to Tobiah. Hey, listen, on the way, let's just stop off at this other town. You have a distant relative there, Rockwell, and he has this beautiful daughter, this maiden, Sarah, and I want the two of you to get to know one another. So Raphael has designs for Sarah. Now, if you remember, Sarah has had some misfortunes of her own, and I want to get to that in a second. So while God, through Raphael, is guiding Tobiah to Sarah in order to have something beautiful happen to Tobiah, a wife eventually, also God is answering a prayer of Sarah for God to have mercy upon her life. And I just want to say that, when God is doing his thing, it's for us, it's not just about us. It's about so many other people too. God's having mercy upon us. It's not just mercy for us, it's mercy for other people too, if we will allow him. And if we will allow him to work in us, but also through us. And that's the case of Tobiah. So Tobiah listens to Raphael, and Raphael is able to lead him to the house of Rockwell. They show up there. They never met one another, Tobiah and Rockwell, but Rockwell knows that they are kinsmen and that they're from the same tribe, even though they're in this exile in the region of Assyria. They greet one another, and where it all ends up is Tobiah asks for the hand of Rockwell's daughter, Sarah, in marriage. Hasn't even seen her, but asked for that based upon what Raphael is telling him. And he's trusting this. And it happens. And so Rockwell presents his daughter Sarah, and she is beautiful. And she's had a lot of tragedy in her life. And what the tragedy is, and Rockwell says this, listen, before you take my daughter's hand in marriage, and marriages back then were arranged, okay, by families. But before you take my daughter's hand in marriage, you should know something. And what you should know is that she's had 7 husbands. And all of them have died on the night of their wedding. Right before they were to enter into the marital bed and have the marital embrace, they died. And they died, and we're going to get to this in a second, because of what they understood is the curse or the power of a demon. And this does not deter Tobiah. Why? Well, here's the reason why. Because before they arrived there, and you can read this in chapter 6, 7, and 8, Raphael stops off and says, hey, Tobiah, let's go ahead and do some fishing. So they go fishing, and Tobiah pulls out this big fish, and Raphael says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to cut out its heart and its liver. And I'm going to ask you to burn these, to sacrifice these later on when you meet Sarah. And so again, Tobiah, a good man, a man of God, is just open to God influencing him through his guardian angel. So he does that, and he brought these organs with him. And when the father of Sarah says, listen, you should know this, and this could happen to you, he's like, I'm not concerned. I'm really not concerned. So he meets Sarah, and he asks for a hand in marriage, and they sign a contract, and the ceremony happens, and now they're in the wedding chambers, and they're about ready to consummate the relationship. And what Tobiah has done is he sacrificed these 2 organs. Now this is important to pay attention to. What do these organs symbolize? And we understand why the other 7 husbands died. The heart, obviously for us, is a symbol of love. And the liver was the part of the body that filtered out impurities and made the body pure. You put those 2 together, and the problem with the other 7 husbands was that they had given themselves over to lust. They could not love Sarah the way that Sarah actually deserved to be loved. And they did not have pure hearts, right? They hadn't filtered out the impurities of their lust. And so God was waiting for Tobiah to show up, a man of purity. And when he saw Sarah, although he saw her beauty, he wasn't overcome with lust with her. And precisely because of what the life that he lived. And the life that he lived was an attunement with God and in the ways of God. And so he did this sacrifice of burning up the heart and the liver as a way of demonstrating, I'm going to love this woman with the love that she deserves. Not just my own love, but God's love. And I'm going to do that, Lord, the way you prescribe, not with a desire to possess her, which is what lust is, right? It's a desire to possess someone as one's own, rather than allow the person to remain a human being that we don't objectify, but that a human being which we can be partners with and be in partnership with, and therefore love that person with just not our own human love, but God's love. And so right before they are to enter into the marital bed and the marital embrace and to make love, this is the prayer, and I want to read it to you. This is the prayer that Tobiah says, and you just got to hear it. It's absolutely beautiful. He says to Sarah, let's kneel down and let's pray. He says, blessed are you, O God of our fathers. Praise be your name forever and ever. Let the heavens and all your children praise you forever. So he's remembering the faith of his fathers, of his own father and his father and his father. He's remembering the faith of his ancestors. And that is important to him, that he's lived out that faith all of his life. Then he says, you made Adam and you gave him his wife Eve to be his help and support. And from these two, the human race descended. And you said, it is not good for man to be alone. Let us make him a partner like himself. And so he's recognizing that Sarah is not going to be a subordinate, somebody that he can just take for himself and for his wife. No, this is a true partner for him. And he's saying this to God. I recognize the place of man and woman and husband and wife in a relationship. And then he says this. This is the most beautiful part of the prayer. Now, Lord, you know that I take this wife of mine not because of lust, but for a noble purpose. Call down your mercy on me and her, and allow us to live together to a happy old age. It's beautiful. That prayer right there, I often hear couples choose as one of their options for their wedding day. And I wonder if they really understand the history of this prayer and the background to this prayer. And I wonder that out loud, because here's what the shape of our culture is today, right? Very different than the time of Tobit. Today, many couples are entering into marriage, not deciding for marriage after discerning a long period if this is the right person for me, meaning the right person that God has chosen for me, and if I'm the right person that God has chosen for this other person, but more what sociologists call the marriage slide. So not the marriage decide, but the marriage slide. And sociologists say this is kind of what the phenomenon is today, is that individuals usually have multiple sexual partners before they marry their spouse, and that's even if they marry their spouse. And once they meet their spouse, they go out on a date or two or three or whatever, but very soon, the first time they meet, or within a month or so after they start dating, they end up in one another's bed. And that's how the relationship starts. And the sexual bond that's created, it works. So God gave sex as a gift to people, to humanity. And with that gift was a very strong bond is formed. A physical bond, yes, but a spiritual bond and a mental bond, an emotional bond, a bond in every human sense of what it means to be bound to another person. And even though it's before marriage and before a committed relationship, that bond nevertheless works. And so it bonds the two of them together before they ever have a proper amount of time and space to discern, am I right for this person? And is this person right for me? They immediately enter into this bond, and it obscures their ability to discern whether or not this really is the right person for me and I'm the right person for them. And not just my sense of what is right, I'm the right person for them and the person for me, but is this what God wants? And that only happens if we're living according to God's ways, not man's ways, not our times, our culture, our contemporary age's interpretation of what marriage and relationship and love is, right? So that's what's going on today. So what then happens is they enter this bond, the bond is formed, and then eventually they say, well, let's go ahead and live together, cohabitation. So we know that many couples who are in love with one another end up living with one another. And then at some point they're like, hey, we're in a sexual relationship with one another. We're living in the same house with one another, the same apartment with one another. We're basically living as husband and wife. So I guess the next logical step is marriage. And therein lies that term, the marriage slide. They simply just kind of slide into the marriage rather than really decide for the marriage after a period of courtship, a period of discerning whether this is the right person. And what ends up happening with many of these, so we know from sociologists and many studies that 75 to 80% of couples who cohabitate prior to marriage end in divorce. That is so sad, because you got to imagine that these individuals love one another and they have feelings like this is the person I want to be with for the rest of my life. They have that intention. But then their intention, their love for one another doesn't pan out. Why? Why? And I think that's where we go back to this beautiful life of Tobiah and Sarah. And that is, the scriptures give to us the answer. One of the secrets to marriage, to a lifelong union of love. And that is that we follow God's plan for marriage rather than our plan. The plan, first of all, that we learn from society, we learn from TV, we learn from songs, we learn from the internet, we learn from movies. We learn from our family members. We're just learning the world's way. But I think a lot of us have forgotten God's way. I'm not saying these things to judge individuals or whatever, but just to say, do you want a lifelong union of love? And if you do, the scriptures have the answer. God has the answer. And we just see this one among many passages in the book of Tobit of what God's answer is. I take this wife of mine, not because of lust, but for a noble purpose. Call down your mercy on me and her, and allow us to live together to a happy old age. That we don't enter into relationships with the person that we think one day we might marry, and long before we even think about marrying this person, we allow ourselves to love that person with God's love rather than our own love. What is God's love? God's love is sacrificial. God's love is, I love this person, the entire person, rather than just this person as an object to fulfill my pleasure. I love the soul of this person, which I want I want this person to be with God forever and ever, not just with me for a night or for a month or even for 60 years together and marriage. I want this person's salvation, their greatest good, rather than the good of this embrace prior to marriage or even the good of marriage. And I want the good of marriage to help me lead this person, this other person who's going to be my spouse, into a life of heaven and a happiness that I'll never be able to provide, even in a lifelong union of love like you, God, are going to be able to provide. And so we allow God's love first to come into us. And then we love that other person with God's love. And then we allow God to purify us and to purify our ability to love. So we don't love a person with lust. We love a person with God's love. And that's what Tobiah does. And that's the symbol of him sacrificing the heart of this fish and the liver, so that lust doesn't rule his desire for Sarah, but love does. And God grants the prayer of Tobiah, and they live together in a happy old age. And even though they did not yet understand what resurrection was, God was going to reveal this later. They're still together in heaven, right? And allowing God to fulfill the persons that they loved in this life as husband and wife for all of eternity, rather than just fulfill them for a night or for a relationship or for even a marriage. So I want to know one of the secrets to a happy marriage. Go read Tobit. Go read it all. It's a short book, but definitely read chapter 6, 7, and 8 and learn about how to love a person. First, by allowing God to love you, and then allowing God's love to guide your life and how you love other people. And then purifying your love every day. We definitely need this in a culture that is simply doesn't know what pure love is anymore. And then live according to that pure love. And then the Lord, this is the part I don't want you to forget, is the Lord provided an angel that guided Tobiah, a guardian angel. And Tobiah allowed that angel to lead him to the person that was right for him and he was right for. A person who had gone through a lot of struggle in life and was just waiting for the person who could love her the way that she deserved to be loved, with a love more than just human love. God will lead you to that spouse. And if you're already married, God will help you to purify your love and even help you to teach your spouse how to be pure in his love, so that the two of you can love one another more than just the way the world is taught, but the way that God is taught and is possible for all of us. Till next time, friends.